Today's the day we drive it out of here. Last episode, we saw glimpses of this thing run. So good. Obviously, we couldn't run it long because I've still got a lot of work to do. Radiator in, power steer pump in. What I'm going to start with though, while there's nothing in the way, is that engine mount. So Michael got me a genuine engine mount. While there's nothing in the way, perfect opportunity to change it. We all saw how much the thing shook when it wasn't running properly. Now with the bottle jacks under the dual cab hilux at the other garage, and I don't really want to put that wheel on yet, we're going to have to go in here and steal the 79's jack for the very first time. How do we do this? That's right. Brand new jack. So we'll get this out and we'll use that. So I'm going to lift the motor up while I undo the engine mount. Is it just me, or have they started scrounging on the size of these jacks? I'm sure these things were bigger. Just like a Big Mac from when we were kids to what it looks like now. Yeah, I swear they used to be a bigger jack. Proof's in the pudding. I wasn't imagining things. Definitely smaller. It's actually not broken, and it's a genuine one too. So that's good news. The overhauled power steer pump can go in. Brian's overhauled it, and we've gotten rid of the restrictor. More flow, more power to turn the wheels. Mini Bullet's been watching this whole process with his little Penrite oil. This pulley's got to come off so we can get the timing cover on. The power steer pump's on, the timing cover's on. Now we get to the unknown. This is the exciting part, because this is something we didn't have when we pulled it all apart. We didn't have the hydro assist ram. So with that, you saw the modifications we did last episode to get one of the hoses in. So we have a second hose. Now that second hose fitting is at the top of the steering box. So I've got the one running to the passenger side, actually running away from the motor into that gap there. I think I'm going to have to run these to where they go on the ram before I continue with all this, because if I'm short, I'm going to have to get new hoses made up, and I don't really fancy myself getting in there once everything's here. This Bent 17 has been the best tool. Not only was it good for the injectors, for all the power steering hoses, but look at this, it just gets in those spots where it's amazing. Then you can turn it the other way and you can be facing back downhill. It's just amazing. An amazing little tool that we made. It was self-explanatory how it wanted to go. They're both running through that gap there. So they're coming out from the top and the very front of the steering box. Through this huge hole that we made this when we did all the big mods at Adam's shop. And we did that so that we could get the steering box in and out. But if we make up a little bracket and we hold them together here, then they can go either cable tied to this shock hoop and then down, because they've got to go there on those 2 points, one here and one on the other side. But I feel that that's going to be the easiest way. They're out of the motor's way, they're out of the exhaust way, they're coming down. They're basically doing what an airline for a locker does. You give a little bit of slack so that they flex, but you've got to pin them somewhere up this end. So the curves there are quite nice. So we're not going to be kinking the line at all. I can continue now with the front of the motor. Not often you get to wash the back of your radiator like this. But this one here, this was done in 2016. Alexandria radiators, the 6th of the 5th. So it would have been just before one of those mid-year comps. So I know it's good, it's not leaking. I mean, it's been in mud. Some of the fins are pushed over. But this is just going to be a good clean. Look at the mud coming out of it. That's got to be keeping it a couple of degrees warmer than it should be. I'm not sure what it is this morning, whether it's the sun's out or that we've heard this thing kick over, but everything seems to be just going nice and easily and smoothly. Everything's falling into place. I'm about to put the hoses on and the belts on, get the coolant in there, hook up those power steer hoses, crossover pipes. With the coolant, we're going to run a Penrite concentrate. And once again, thank you Penrite. So what we're going to do, too much coolant in your motor actually stops the motor from cooling down properly. So too much antifreeze is no good. What we want to do is 1/3 antifreeze, 2/3 water for whatever amount we need to use to fill up. So I've just used a milk bottle. I've marked 666 ml, whatever it is, 1/3 of the bottle. Normally we'd be ready to turn the key, leave the radiator cap open and let that coolant bleed through. But I've still got open power steering hoses. These ones here need to be hooked up to the ram first. I've run those hoses clear of anywhere that I can see them fouling for now. Shell and the kids aren't here and I'm about to start it. So I've got them running down through, got them zip tied at the moment to the shock tower, and then they're running behind a steering arm. But I'm not sure until I get it out in the bush and I, articulate it, that I'll know how much hose I need at full articulation. Looks a little different with all its accessories bolted on, doesn't it? So we've got the coolant in, cap off so it can bleed. Thermostat open, then we top up. Now the power steering's also going to have no fluid through it, having the pump off and the box. So I'm going to top it up. I'm going to put a little bit in it just so the pump's not running dry. We're going to need to bleed that too, but I'm going to have to be able to drive it out of the garage to bleed it. I shouldn't be nervous to start it because we did hear it kick over and idle without the radiator in. There was a lot of things I had to bolt on. I've double checked. While the cooling system bleeds, I'll whack in these last couple of split pins and get this 40 on. Now I'm no stranger to bleeding power steering systems. I've had plenty of pumps go in the past. We've taken boxes in and out as well. But never have I done the two together, so the box and the pump. Nor have I overhauled and had them both completely open together. Add in the ram and the new lines, it made it a very tricky, time-consuming exercise. Being on my own, I basically did it as I would any other time. Front wheels off the ground, fluid in, left to right slowly, letting the air come back out. Now this thing sucked in over 2 litres of hydraulic fluid. I was having issues at full lock left. I was trying to count left revolutions and right revolutions. Left I wasn't getting many at all, so I thought there was a potential problem. It turns out that the bolts were touching, so the bolt that holds the rose joint on the ram and one of the U-bolt nuts. Gotta cut them 2 threads back. Looking in on the Trailgear instructions, it actually says that these 2 spots can foul. Over in the US, them driving on the left-hand side, it was always specified as driver's side U-bolt, which freaked me out a little bit because I was thinking, well, have I got this around the wrong way? But no, they drive on the left. So our passenger side is their driver's side. For now. I don't know what's going to happen when it all flexes up and stuff, but for now, this is all very tight. This is a very tight setup. Found a can of this, like almost unused. Found a spot, clear spot right there. And the patina look, like this has been out in the rain for a week, so you can't get a more natural patina look than this. A little bit of this, a couple of screws into there.
Hey Jen, the V8's started.
Oh cool, have a look at that. I mean, an architect wouldn't have been able to pick a better spot for that. Have a look at the scope of that. It's just awesome. And look how glossy it is. I'm trying to get this car in. I'm going to need your help. I would like for you to film from behind clearance. But if the V8s are started, then that cell's covered. I'm coming in. Well, it kind of sort of is like a museum. I've got a lot of old stuff up here, a lot of broken stuff too. To me, a lot of cool stuff. These are going to Adam's tomorrow. He's so excited. I think tonight he's going to go down to the factory and unbolt his old 37s and they'll be going straight on. We've seen the comparison in earlier videos, but it's massive. Best part about putting an 80 series rear diff under an LM106, you've got a hub. So you can rest the wheel on the hub for us old lazy guys. People that have LM106s know what I'm talking about. See, it's rested. I'm not in the studs yet, but it's rested. You won't find one of these at a tyre shop. I had to call in for help. My fingers are too big to get these short nuts on. So my lovely assistant is going to help out. So we want to torque these up at 160 foot-pound, Shell.
Okay.
15 PSI in all four corners. It's time to bring it in. Weather's not being kind again, but it's been the norm of late. Do we need to go up a course? I can go up a course, just not at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. This visit over to Adams to see if we can make his GU look a little bit better. Wow, he's almost ready for one. I believe I made your day.
Yeah, mate.
Oh, looks heaps better. Went on the 40. This is where they need to go on. So they're the old 35s that we had on the 79. Yeah, forget the GU. That's what we've come to see. Oh, look at that. That looks sweet. They're probably a touch small for that.
They're 40s.
Yeah, well, we've got some of them now too. Very cool. Yeah, it's raining again. More bullet time. We're going to start off with measurements before we do this exercise this morning. 115 millimeters, 1270. This is the one we really need to improve on. 120. So this is going to play an important part in the little mods we're doing today, and I don't want this grub screw to move. So a bit of Loctite. U-bolts are out and I've got that pin undone and I've got half of this out. Little bit of a comparison. There is probably an 8mm gap under that bit of channel. So these springs, I had 4 made up at the same time. Now these are a rear, so there's no driver's side or passenger side as there is in the conventional fronts, where you need the driver's side a little bit stiffer than the passenger side. So 4 runs, and there looks like there is a 10mm sag in it, and that's unladen, so that's them sitting in the exact same positions on the ground. We'll know exactly how much of a gain we're going to get in height by the measurements we took this morning. So we're ready to put the new spring in, but before we do, we've got to work out what we're doing with these plates. So on all the other trucks, we've put the center pin in that hole there, and that pushes the diff forward, the 35mm. But because we've got the steer box in, we can't really do that anymore because we've got all these points that we need to keep accurate. So what this relocating plate does is that there that we Loctited on earlier, that grub screw, that sits in the center. So that's a gain or a push of 20mm if I use the back hole, and if I turn it around, that's a push of 25mm. Whereas if we use the one on the housing, which I've used before and we've used on all the other cars we've done, that's a 35mm push. What we're worried about is those 2 parallel arms binding off-road. A shorter pitman arm would do the trick because it will bring that top arm towards the front of the car, but we couldn't find one. So 35mm will bind 100%. So you would think a 20mm push over the 25 will give the arms 5mm more clearance. I've decided to go with the 20mm. 25's probably a little bit greedy. So I've got to keep those arms no worse than parallel. They cannot cross over. And now I've got that clamp that I've got to clear too. So what happens is that stays there and this walks forward. So it walks in towards the front. So we're going to try with the 20. While it's out, I'll throw some flexi bushes in it, some new flexi bushes since I got so many of them. Another thing I'm going to do while I've got the opportunity to get a socket up that bump stop is I've got some 20mm blocks here. So it's going to be 20mm less chance of it destroying all this inner guard. Can't actually get a socket up in there. What is going on here? It's a rock. That's unbelievable. It's a piece of sandstone stuck in there. Oh my goodness. You're supposed to be nice to me today, Bullet. How did that get up in there? Seriously. It looks like a piece of Weenie Creek rock. Unbelievable. Bugger it, you know the saying, right? They say one thing leads to another. So now the bolts are going to be too short. So I'm going to have to find longer bolts. But I've got to do this before I put the spring in, otherwise I can't get a socket up in there. It sucked up a bit of time, but I found a nut and bolt that'll suit. When you're talking clearances of millimeters, this U-bolt's got very little room to come up and it's hitting the plate. So I'm going to have to cut the 2 corners back so that the U-bolt can pass up through it. Bugger. And where the U-bolt wants to come up, it's hitting the plate. I'm just going to have to take 5mm off. I might just do it the same to both sides so it's the same width as the perch. Now I've got to get this diff to walk forward, that 20mm, but I've got no chance without a tyre on it. I've got to loosen off these nuts on the opposite side so there's a bit of flexibility in it. See, that's where it wants to move to. I've pushed and it's not moving. I'm gonna have some lunch and have a think about this. The 106 dual cab's not here. It's the only other car with a winch. So I've had to use Bullett's winch on a snatch block back to the 79. And I'm gonna try and pull this diff forward. We got a little way doing it with the wheel on the ground. Now I've taken some of the weight off. I've got the high lift jack on the side step and we're getting there. Hello there, that's where you're supposed to be. Pins in, the U-bolts are up and that backside's in. And it looks like, so obviously the passenger side's still got to come forward, but we haven't crossed over those two arms yet. We're still either parallel or just a touch forward. Let's get it down on the ground. So with that packer in there and the packer in there, we're sort of ending up probably a little bit less than what we started as far as this up travel. But this is a rubber progressive bump stop, so it actually squashes. So it's not going to be just that up travel. It will squash up. Probably won't use the whole length of shock there, which is good because then I'll be eating into this metal here. So we can see where we were hitting before. I'm sorry, Bullet. Only thing I want to make sure now is that I'm still getting full throttle, full cable. Oh, there's a touch more. Might just hit one hit back down. Yeah, that felt better too with the prop I'm using. Yep, that's full throttle. So when I'm powering up that hill or over those rocks and I get a little bit annoyed and I want full noise, that's full throttle, so I'm happy. Another thing I noticed on the saddle bolt is touching on the last spring. It was obviously from full lock right hand down. The front one didn't hit. For the sake of a couple of minutes, I'm going to turn them around. I'm going to send the bolt through from this end, have the nut on the back side. Every millimeter counts. And just having a look there at Tony Shire's long slip shaft, having moved the diff forward, that 20 mil isn't really going to make much difference on that. There's plenty of slip in that. What a mess. Horrible day. 135 on the shock shaft, 1300 on the dot. So that's a gain of 30 mil. Geez, I hope I had that up there. This is the important one. Hopefully, because we gained a bit of height, we're going to gain more than just the 20 mil dip push that we did. Oh, that's a great outcome. 160. So we started on the 37s. The measurements we took with the 37s was only 170 at its maximum. So we're 10 mil less, but 40 mil more than the beginning of the day. I'm going to be cutting through here on an angle, down into there. I'm going to cut all this off. I'm going to leave this part. And I'm going to trim up all this part in here. Please join us in the next episode. We get the passenger side done, and with a bit of luck, we'll be driving it onto the trailer for our test run. Following week is round 1 of the URS. But if I was to be honest right now, we're not in that good a position to be saying we'll be there yet. We need to sort out the passenger side. We need to do a test run out in the bush to make sure all our clearances are okay. Then we'll decide. I think I may even need to rerun the hoses that go to the ram from the box. I've just got a feeling when it was on the high lift jack, I could potentially see somewhere where they may pinch each other on one of the arms. But next episode, definitely, it'll be going on the trailer. As always, thanks for watching.